My name is Alex. I'm 25, not married, not even dating anyone right now. I live in a rented house just outside of town. I share it with my sister. She takes the small bedroom. I take the one near the kitchen. It's not much, but it works. I've been working hard the last couple of years trying to build something for myself. I run a small landscaping business. Lawns, hedges, flower beds, trees, I do it all. It started slow. I was barely making ends meet. The first 6 months had to borrow gear. Couldn't afford decent tools, but I stuck with it. Eventually, someone left me a 5-star review and I got a few local calls. I printed some flyers, paid for one of those cheap local Facebook ads, and slowly the work started to come in. Not huge jobs, but enough to keep me busy enough to build something. So one morning I get a call from this woman. Her voice was calm, polite, kind of soft but confident. She said her lawn was in terrible shape. Said nothing was growing right. There were dead patches, too many weeds, and the soil seemed off. I told her I could come by and take a look. She asked if I could do it early. I said, sure. I like to get the hard stuff out of the way in the morning anyway. That same morning, I loaded up my gear rake tell, soil test kit, irrigation head, and a few bags of starter seed, then headed out to her place. The neighborhood was quiet, upper middle class, nothing fancy but well kept. When I pulled up, I noticed the lawn even before I rang the bell. It was rough, real patchy, thin grass, brown spots, and yeah, she was right. Way too many weeds. She opened the door before I even knocked, and honestly, I didn't expect her to look like that. She looked to be around 36, maybe 37, long brown hair, tied back, minimal makeup, just wearing a soft gray sweater and jeans, no rings on her fingers. She smiled this calm, elegant kind of smile and introduced herself. Hi, I'm Sarah. You must be Alex. I nodded. That's me. She walked me around to the side yard, then to the back. This is where it's the worst, she said. She was right. The lawn was barely holding on, the soil was compacted. There were bare spots everywhere, and the weeds were already choking out what was left. I crouched down, pulled a handful of dirt in my hand, looked at the root structure, tested a corner for irrigation flow. This isn't a one-day fix, I told her. She nodded. I figured, what would you recommend? I explained my process first. Manual weed removal. Got to do it by hand so we don't disturb the shallow roots that still have life in them. Then soil amendment and a slow-release fertilizer. After that, we overseed and water deeply for the next several days. She asked how long it would take. I said probably 4 days minimum, maybe 5 if the weather holds up. And the cost? She asked. I gave her a fair price. She didn't even flinch. Sounds good, she said. Do whatever you think's best, just don't let it die. I got started that same day. Pulled out the weeds by hand, one at a time. Raked the topsoil, lightly cleared old mulch that had gone sour. She came outside once around noon. It was hot mid-July, no breeze, and she brought out a tall glass of lemonade. You look like you needed this, she said. I smiled. You have no idea. We talked a little, nothing deep, just surface stuff. She asked how long I'd been doing this. I told her 2 years. She said the house used to belong to her parents, but she moved in after her divorce. I didn't ask questions. I wasn't there for that. After she went back inside, I kept working. Finished cleaning out the front beds, flagged the broken sprinkler heads, marked the dry zones with little colored stakes, everything by the book. At the end of the day, I packed my tools, cleaned up after myself, and knocked on her door to let her know I was done. She opened it with that same calm smile. You really know what you're doing, she said. I try, I answered. I'll be back early tomorrow if that's okay. She nodded. That's perfect. I drove home that evening with sore hands, dirt under my nails, and for some reason her voice stuck in my head. I couldn't explain why. Maybe it was how she carried herself, maybe just the way she looked at me when she handed me that glass, but I didn't think much of it. I had a job to finish. Next morning, I was back at her place. I like to start early, especially in summer. Get some solid work done before the heat kicks in. I parked my truck on the street again, grabbed my gear, and headed straight to the backyard. She wasn't outside this time, so I just got to work. First task for the day was soil treatment. I brought a compost mix. I make myself rich, clean, full of organic matter, spread it with a flat rake, gently working it into the top layer of the soil. It smelled earthy the way good soil should. The kind of thing that people don't notice, but I do. I care about this stuff. I actually enjoy it. I heard her sliding door open behind me. "Good morning," she said. I turned, stood up straight. She was in a light blue tank top and yoga pants, hair down, this time barefoot. She looked relaxed. "Morning." I said, brushing dirt off my gloves. "You sleep okay?" She smiled a little. First time in a while, actually. She brought out another glass of lemonade, just like yesterday. Cold, sweating in the heat. "You didn't have to," I said. "I wanted to," she replied. We stood in silence for a moment. She handed me the drink. Our fingers didn't touch, but they came close. "So what's the plan for today?" she asked. "Topsoil treatment, then I'll overseed and start deep watering. I'll have to come back later in the afternoon to water again if the sun dries it out too fast." She nodded. "You really know what you're doing." I shrugged. "Took me a while to get here. I used to be terrible." She laughed. "Well, you picked the right profession. This place already feels better." We didn't talk much more. She watched for a bit while I worked. Eventually, she went back inside. That afternoon, I returned just like I said I would. I knocked once, but nobody answered. So I let myself into the backyard again, started watering in slow circles, being careful not to flood the fresh seed. That's when I saw her watching me through the kitchen window. She wasn't smiling or waving, just standing there, arms crossed, eyes focused. Not in a weird way, just quiet, thoughtful. When I caught her gaze, I gave her a small nod, and she disappeared behind the curtain. The next day, day 3, I was clearing the side beds and noticed a few bricks on the edge of the pathway were loose. Not part of the job, but I like to leave things better than I find them. I set down my rake and started adjusting them, using a trowel to scrape out weeds between gap. She came out again, this time holding 2 glasses. "I brought one for me, too," she said. "Good idea," I said, wiping my forehead with a towel. We sat down near the back fence under a bit of shade. "I'm glad I called you," she said after a moment. "Me too," I replied without thinking. She gave me a strange look. Not bad, not confused, just like she was trying to figure something out. "You're not like most guys I've met," she said. I laughed a little. "Is that a compliment?" She smiled. "You'll have to decide that." We sat there for a while, not really talking, just listening to the birds sipping lemonade, letting the heat pass. The 4th morning, I started early again. I had brought a new spreader for fertilizer and was testing nozzle pressure when she stepped outside, this time in an oversized t-shirt and slippers, coffee in hand. "I was going to sleep in," she said, but the noise convinced me otherwise. "Sorry," I said quickly. No, it's fine. I like the sound. Reminds me someone else is here." She sat on the porch steps while I kept working. A few minutes passed. I walked toward the hose reel, turned it on, and started watering the freshly treated areas. That's when she came closer. She stood a few feet away from me, barefoot on the stone path. Her arms were crossed lightly and her hair was pulled over one shoulder. I wasn't looking at her in any strange way. I was just looking. She had a kind of calmness that drew attention, and that's when she asked it. "Why do you keep looking at me like that?" I froze for a second, not in fear, just caught off guard. I hadn't even realized I was looking at her like anything. "So," I said the first thing that came to mind, "because you're a woman exactly in my taste." She tilted her head, smiled, then laughed. "Well," she said, "if that's true, I'm inviting you to dinner tonight if you're brave enough." I blinked. "I'm serious," she added, stepping back toward the porch. "Seven Hauer and I make a decent grilled salmon unless you're scared." I looked at her, then down to my gloves soaked with water and mud. I smiled. "I'll be there," I said, "but I'll bring dessert." She grinned. "Deal?" And just like that, she went inside. I stood there holding the hose water spraying silently into the bushes, my heart suddenly beating faster than it had in weeks. The job was almost done. The lawn looked better already, but something else had just started and I wasn't sure where it was heading. I spent most of that afternoon thinking about what to wear. That's not usually something I stress about, but this felt different. It wasn't a date, not officially. She'd invited me to dinner, sure, but she hadn't flirted, hadn't touched me, hadn't done anything that crossed the line. Still, there was something in her tone, a weight to it. She was testing the water, and now I was standing in front of my closet wondering if my nicest t-shirt and cleanest jeans were too casual or just right. I pulled up outside her house. No work gear this time, just me holding a small box of pastries from a place downtown I always liked. I stood on her porch and took a breath before knocking. She opened the door right away. I don't know what I expected. Maybe something dramatic, a dress, candles, music, but no. She wore a long cardigan over a plain top and leggings. Her hair was tied up. No makeup. She looked like someone at home comfortable. "You came," she said, smiling fiercely. "You invited me," I answered. She stepped aside and let me in. The house smelled like lemon and garlic. Something was roasting in the oven. The kitchen lights were soft, not too bright. Music played quietly from a speaker. Some old soul track I didn't recognize. "Can I take a jacket?" she asked. I didn't bring one. She raised an eyebrow, confident. I laughed, just warm-blooded. We sat at the kitchen island. She poured us both water, then handed me a glass of wine before asking if I liked salmon. I nodded. She smiled. We talked a little while. She finished up the salad. I noticed things I hadn't before. How her kitchen was spotless but lived in a half-finished book on the table, a photo of her in a golden retriever on the fridge, a chipped coffee mug by the sink. Dinner was ready. We sat at a small table near the window. She served grilled salmon, roasted potatoes, and steamed green beans. Simple, but done perfectly. "I haven't cooked for anyone in a long time," she admitted. "I haven't eaten this well in even longer," I replied. She laughed softly, then took a bite. For a while we just ate. No pressure, no awkward silence, the kind of quiet that feels okay. After we finished, I offered to help clean up. She waved me off. "Just leave it. I want to sit." So we moved to the living room. She curled up in one corner of the couch. I took the other. We sat facing each other, knees tucked, wine glasses in hand. "That was amazing," I said. "Thank you," she replied. Then, after a pause, "I'm glad you're here." I nodded. "Me too." And then slowly the conversation got deeper. She asked me how I got into landscaping. I told her about my dad's old push mower and how I used to help him edge the lawn when I was 9, about how after he passed I kept doing it even when we had no yard of our own. She asked about my sister. I told her we were close, that we'd been through a lot together, that she worked at a vet clinic and hated dating apps. She asked about my future, what I wanted. I want to build something I'm proud of. I said, even if it's small, even if nobody sees it but me. She smiled at that. That's rare. Then I asked about her. She hesitated, but only for a moment. I was married, she said, 5 years, no kids. I stayed quiet. He was charming at first, the kind of man everyone liked at parties. Then he started drinking more, missing work, coming home angry. And when he wasn't angry, he just wasn't there emotionally. I don't think he ever really saw me, not once. I looked at her. She didn't flinch. Her voice was steady. I left 2 years ago, she said. Best decision I ever made. Do you miss him? I asked before I could stop myself. She shook her head. I miss the version of him I thought existed. That's different. We sat in silence for a bit. She sipped her wine, then leaned back into the cushions. Sorry, she said, that got heavy. No, I said, I'm glad you told me. She nodded slowly. Most people just want the highlights. I'm not most people. She looked at me for a long second, then smiled. I know. We didn't kiss, we didn't touch, nothing like that. But the air between us was different now. Not romantic, not even flirtatious, just close, like two people who'd seen parts of each other most never bothered to notice. I stood up. I should get going. Of course, she said, standing too. I walked to the door. She followed. Thanks for coming, she said. Thanks for inviting me. I opened the door, stepped outside, then turned around. I'll finish the watering tomorrow morning, I said. She smiled. I know you will. I walked to my truck under a quiet, sky-warm breeze, brushing my neck and a strange feeling in my chest. It wasn't loved, not yet, but it was something. I didn't sleep much that night, not because anything bad happened, quite the opposite. The night had gone so smoothly, so naturally, that it left me restless. I kept replaying pieces of the evening, her laugh, the way she looked at me when I talked about my dad, the calmness in her voice when she spoke about her past. It didn't feel like a first step into something. It felt like something already in motion, like we'd skipped a few chapters and landed somewhere deeper. The next morning I was back at her place. The lawn was doing well. The grass was still young, but greener, fuller. I could see it breathing again. I set up the sprinkler heads and started another cycle of watering. I was done with everything. Major, no more seeding, no more soil work, just maintenance. Now, a final check. Then I'd be finished. She came outside, bathrobe, slippers, coffee in hand. Morning, she said with a sleepy voice. Morning, I replied. Did you sleep okay? She nodded surprisingly. Yeah. We chatted briefly, then she went back inside. I finished adjusting the timers, tightened the last hose fitting, and wrote out a short maintenance plan for her. What to water, when to mow, how often to fertilize. I knocked on the door when I was done. She opened it, holding a pen. I was hoping you'd come by before leaving, she said. I handed her the plan. Everything's on here, but if you ever need help, you've got my number. She took the paper, scanned it quickly. Looks good. Then she looked at me. Are you free tonight? I paused. Yeah, I am, and let me return the favor. I'm taking you to dinner. You already cooked for me? I said, smiling. She shook her head. This time I'm buying. Come on, let me take you out. I laughed. All right, I'll pick you up. No, she said, I'll pick you up. We agreed. I gave her a quick wave and left. The rest of the day I worked on another client's yard, but I couldn't focus. My mind kept drifting back to her. There was something about the way she carried herself, something about the way she looked at me when she thought I wasn't paying attention. That evening I stood on my porch wearing my best button-down and clean jeans. She pulled up right on time in a dark silver sedan, windows down, sunglasses on. When I opened the passenger door, she smiled. You clean up well, she said. You too. She took me to a restaurant by the lake. Small, quiet, but beautiful warm lights, wood interior, soft jazz playing in the background. We sat near a window with a view of the water. We ordered food. She got a grilled chicken salad. I went with pasta. We shared a bottle of wine, talked more, laughed more. This time there was less weight in the air. The conversations were easier, lighter, but still real. Halfway through dinner, she leaned in and said, "You make things feel simple." I looked at her. "Is that a good thing?" "It's a great thing," she said. "Most people complicate everything. You don't." I didn't know what to say, so I said the truth. "I just really like being around you." She smiled and looked down. After dinner, I suggested we walk along the lake. She agreed. The bath was lined with dim street lamps. The water was calm, the night still. At some point, we stopped walking. She was standing beside me, arms crossed. I could tell she was thinking about something. I looked over at her and said, "I've been meaning to tell you something." She turned to me slowly. "I think I've caught feelings for you." She didn't say anything at first, just stood there. I could hear my own breathing. I didn't plan to. I continued, "It just happened. Being around you, the way you talk, the way you carry yourself, it's not about age, it's not even about time. I just really feel something real." Still nothing. "I'm not saying this to pressure you," I added quickly. I just didn't want to keep it to myself anymore. After a moment, she exhaled. "Alex, I don't want to hurt you." "You're not," I said. "You can tell me anything." She looked to the ground, then back at me. "I like spending time with you. I really do. You make me laugh. You listen. You make me feel seen, but I'm not ready to be in a relationship. I don't know if I ever will be, not in the way you probably want." I tried to process it. "So what are we doing then?" She shrugged gently. "I don't know. I didn't expect any of this. I just enjoy the way things are. I don't want to define it. I don't want a tragedy." There was a silence not hostile, just full. She stepped closer and placed a hand lightly on my arm. "If you're okay with how it is," she said, "I'd love to keep spending time together. But if you're looking for more, I can't give it." I nodded slowly. "Okay," I said. We walked back to the car without saying much. She drove me home, pulled up in front of my place and left the engine running. "Thanks for coming with me tonight," she said. "Thanks for inviting me." She smiled, but this time there was something else behind it. Regret, maybe, or honesty. "Good night, Alex. Good night." I got out of the car and watched her drive off, then stood on the porch for a long time trying to understand what I was feeling. I thought she was falling too. I thought I'd read it right, but maybe I'd just been wrong, and I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't text her the next day. I didn't call either. It wasn't because I was angry. I wasn't, at least not in the way people usually mean when they say that. I wasn't hurt by what she said. She hadn't lied, hadn't played me, hadn't made promises she didn't keep. But something had shifted, something inside me. I'd opened a door she didn't want to walk through, and I couldn't unopen it. That whole next week, I kept working. Took on 2 new yard cleanups in a commercial office contract. I left the house early, came home late, showered, passed out, woke up, and did it all again. I needed the distraction. I needed the quiet rhythm of work. But the silence from her side grew louder with each day. She didn't reach out either, not at first. Maybe she was giving me space. Or maybe she thought I was done. Maybe she was right. On the 7th day, she texted, "Hey, haven't heard from you. Hope you're okay." I stared at the message for a long time, typed a few different responses, deleted. All of them didn't reply. A day later, she called. I let it ring. Then again, voicemail, no message. After the fourth call, she stopped trying. Weeks passed. At some point, I drove by her house while heading to a nearby client. Her lawn looked good, still green. The seed had taken root. She'd kept watering it. Maybe she was using the schedule I left her, or maybe she'd found someone else to take care of it. My sister asked about her once. "You still talking to that lady Sarah, right?" I shook my head. Not anymore. She didn't ask anything else. Summer faded into early fall. I kept busy. Business was stable. I upgraded some tools, started planning a website, focused on my routine. I stopped checking my phone every few minutes, stopped wondering if I'd run into her at the grocery store, stopped listening to old soul songs at night. But I hadn't forgotten. Wow. One afternoon, about 2 months after our last conversation, I bumped into one of my earliest clients. Mr. Thompson, older guy, lived across town. Loved talking about soil acidity. We chatted a bit near the hardware store. Eventually, he mentioned Sarah. "You worked on her lawn, right? That woman on Everett Street?" "Yeah," I said cautiously. "She's a strange one," he said, shaking his head. "Nice, but always keeps people at a distance. I think she just likes company now and then. Then she disappears." I didn't respond. "She did the same with the guy before you," he added. "My nephew actually not a landscaper. He fixed her porch steps, said she invited him in one evening and they talked for hours. Then one day she just went quiet, stopped answering, cold but polite." I nodded slowly. "Maybe that's just who she is," I said. "Maybe it was." That night I sat out back on our little patio. It was cool, quiet, almost dark. I kept thinking about how I'd let myself fall into something that wasn't ever going to be real, not for her. But still, I didn't regret it. I meant every word I said. I'd shown up. I'd been honest. That meant something. Even if it didn't lead anywhere, it taught me how I want to feel, what I want to build with someone, and what I can't fake again. I never heard from her after that week. She didn't text, didn't call, didn't show up anywhere unexpectedly. It was like we both silently agreed to put a period on it. Not with anger, not with drama, just acceptance. And that was the end of it. I haven't driven past her house since. I don't even remember the number anymore. But sometimes when I water a lawn, I still think of her voice that morning. "Why do you keep looking at me like that?" And I remember the kid I was in that moment. Hopeful, maybe a little naive, but real and still standing. The story of Alex and Sarah offers a poignant lesson. Embracing vulnerability in relationships requires courage, but it's in accepting their authentic boundaries that we grow. Alex, a young landscaper building his life, found himself drawn to Sarah, a woman whose calm exterior hid a painful past. Their connection blossomed through quiet moments. Lemonade shared dinners and honest conversations. But when Alex confessed his feelings, Sarah's gentle truth revealed she wasn't ready for more. Her honesty, though painful, wasn't rejection. It was a gift of clarity at allowing Alex to reflect on what he truly seeks in love. This teaches us that not every connection must lead to forever. Some are meant to teach us about ourselves, about resilience, and about honoring someone's limits without losing our own worth. Alex's choice to stay true to his feelings, even when unreciprocated, shows that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's a step toward understanding what we need and deserve. Sarah's quiet strength reminds us that healing from past wounds takes time, and respecting that process is a form of care. Their story urges us to cherish fleeting connections, to speak our truth, and to let go when needed, trusting that each experience shapes us for what lies ahead. The story of Alex and Sarah unfolds as a tender reminder that vulnerability in love demands profound courage, yet true growth emerges from honoring boundaries and embracing fleeting connections. Alex, a young landscaper forging his path, discovers an unexpected bond with Sarah, a woman healing from a shattered marriage. Through shared lemonades, intimate dinners, and raw conversations, their worlds intertwine, igniting hope in Alex's heart. But when he confesses his feelings, Sarah's honest revelation that she's not ready for more shatters illusions without malice. This poignant encounter teaches us that not every spark ignites a lasting flame. Some are gentle teachers, illuminating our desires, resilience, and self-worth. In accepting rejection as clarity, not defeat, Alex learns to cherish authenticity over fantasy, reminding us all to open our hearts boldly, release what isn't ours, and trust that each unmet expectation shapes us into wiser souls. Have you ever grown from a connection that faded too soon? Share your heartfelt story in the comments below. I'd love to read it. If this touched you, hit subscribe and join our community for more inspiring tales of life's deepest lessons. Let's navigate emotions together.